everyone, welcome back to Actual English. My name is Jennifer Clyde. It is already time for lesson 26, and today let's talk about being hospitalized. It's called hospitalization. So have you ever been really sick? Or have you ever had to have surgery and stay in the hospital? Have you ever had to be hospitalized? We'll talk about that. Of course, we all get sick. Some people are lucky that they've never actually had to stay in the hospital. But as for me, I have had a few surgeries. I was sick in the past about maybe 10, 12 years ago, and I did have to stay in the hospital. So I could even say I was hospitalized for 3 to 4 days about 12 years ago. I'm okay now, so it's all good. Okay, we've got lots of expressions, vocabulary, and phrases to learn today, so relax everyone and get ready to enjoy today's lesson. Let's get started.
Hey Peter, I heard that you were hospitalized for a little bit. Are you okay now?
Yeah, just the other month I was in hospital, I think, for 4 days in total. It was a problem with my liver. But
okay.
Everything's fine now.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, but that 4 days was like the most boring, mind-numbing 4 days of my life.
Really? You weren't worried at all?
I was a little bit concerned, but I didn't feel too bad, just really fatigued. My muscles felt really heavy and stuff like that. But it wasn't like an emergency, a life-threatening thing.
Okay. You weren't rushed to the ER?
No.
That's
that would have been scary. Yeah.
Right.
I hate going to ER because you see all these people with injuries, When I was a kid as well, you'd see people bleeding, like, from their heads or their arms. You'd be like, I don't want to go to hospital. I'm going to end up like that.
Exactly.
But, have you ever been hospitalized, ever?
Not overnight, but I've definitely been rushed to the ER a couple times. Sports injuries, as I mentioned before, and also I hurt my head. I fell out of a window.
You fell out of a window?
Yeah, when I was in elementary school, and I cracked it open.
Oh, no.
But it wasn't a major injury that I had to be hospitalized overnight, but I was rushed to the ER, and I was... a doctor saw me immediately. Because you know how the process in ERs can take forever?
Sure.
They kind of put you on a ranking scale. If you have a serious injury, they'll see you first. If it's something small, you have to wait for hours.
Yeah, any head-related injuries, I think they take priority, right?
Right. But when you're in the hospital, did you have to eat the hospital food?
But it was in Korea, and hospital food in Korea is much better than in the UK. Like, you cannot compare it. In the UK, I don't even know what it is, because it's just all mixed together.
Mush?
Yeah, but in Korea, like, there's grilled fish, there's a soup, there's some side dishes. The food was great. The worst thing about it was the clothes. You all wear the same clothes.
The hospital gowns.
It kind of feels like you're in prison or something.
That's true. Everybody looks the same.
I didn't like that. So next time, here's a tip for everyone. Wear your own clothes, like some comfortable sports clothes.
Will they let you wear them?
I think so, because some other people were wearing them when they were walking around. I was very jealous.
That's smart. That's good to know.
Yeah.
Well, see, things happen in life. We all get hurt every once in a while, but sometimes we can get really seriously injured where we have to go to the hospital, stay in the hospital, or even rushed to the ER. I'm sure you've heard of ER in today's actual talk several times. ER is actually short for emergency room. 응급실. So let's take a look at what Rachel and Peter were talking about in today's actual talk. Now, in the beginning, Rachel began by saying, hey, Peter, I heard that you were hospitalized. See? Okay. Hospital, hospitalized means to be put in the hospital for a while. And then she says, are you okay now? Okay. Now, Peter says, just the other month, I was in the hospital, I think, for 4 days in total. All right, now take a look at this pattern. He's talking about when it happened, when he was hospitalized. When was it? The other month. So this could be last month or perhaps about 2 months ago, the other month, but perhaps most probably the month before. Last month, I was in the hospital or I was hospitalized for 4 days. For how long? When you talk about the duration, you should always use for. For how many days? For how long? So for 4 days in total, all together. It was a problem with my liver. We'll be taking a look at this pattern in just a bit later on, but for now, let's take a look. It was a problem with something, and he says, well, with my liver, meaning I had a problem with my liver. I had to be hospitalized because I had a problem with my liver. He says, but everything is fine now. He's okay now. That's good, Peter. Glad to hear that. And then Rachel says, that's good to hear. Okay, moving on. He says, but those 4 days, remember he said I had to be in the hospital or stay in the hospital. I was in the hospital for 4 days. So he's talking about those 4 days, okay? The 4 days he had to stay in the hospital. Those 4 days were the most boring, mind-numbing 4 days of my life. Okay, boring is quite easy, right? We all know what boring means. It's very dull. What about mind-numbing? Now, numbing, what does it mean? It means that you can't feel anything. If you say, for example, my finger is numb, it means you don't have any feeling in your finger. So mind-numbing basically means extremely dull and extremely boring. So he's saying the 4 days I had to stay in the hospital were the most boring and mind-numbing 4 days of my life. And then Rachel says, you weren't worried at all? Now, what did Peter say? He said, I was a little bit concerned, okay? A little bit concerned, but I didn't feel too bad. Just really fatigued. My muscles felt really heavy, but it wasn't like an emergency or life-threatening. Okay, let's take a look at some vocab here. He's saying he wasn't really worried, but he was a little bit concerned. A little bit worried. And he says, but it didn't feel too bad, or I didn't feel too bad. Now, the word here is fatigue. We did take a look at the word fatigue. What does it mean? I feel fatigued, or I felt fatigued. It means extremely tired. Usually when you're feeling extremely tired physically and mentally, you can say that you are fatigued. You have no strength. You don't have the energy to do anything at all. So he felt very, very tired, extremely tired, fatigued. And he says, my muscles felt really heavy. That's right. So his body felt really heavy. He had no strength at all. But he says, but it wasn't like an emergency or life-threatening. If you say that something is life-threatening, you are saying that it is very, very dangerous or very severe, very serious. So altogether, he's saying, well, I did feel fatigued. I didn't have any strength or energy, but it wasn't really serious. It wasn't that bad. Now, Rachel says you weren't rushed to the ER. Rushed to means somebody taking you somewhere in a hurry. So you weren't rushed to the ER. You weren't taken to the ER, emergency room, in a hurry. And he said, no, I hate going to the ER. Okay, why? Because you see all these people with injuries. That's right. When you do go to the ER, you see lots of people that are hurt. And he says, when I was a kid, I'd see people bleeding from like their heads or their arms. So he's talking about his experience. This is a great thing he did because, first of all, he's talking about not liking to go to the ER. And then it's always good to add details. He explains why he doesn't like to go to the emergency room. He says, why? I remember as a little boy, I would go to the ER and see people that are injured and bleeding everywhere. And then he asks, have you ever been hospitalized? Well, what did Rachel say? She said, I've definitely been rushed to the ER. So the answer is yes, I have been to the ER a couple times. And then she talks about sports injuries. And she says, I hurt my head. And I fell out of a window. Fall out, okay? You're not just falling down, okay? Falling down is basically tripping over something or falling down, but falling out of something, in this case, falling out of a window, it means 창문 밖으로 떨어지다. It's a very serious thing that happened to her. Anyhow, and Peter says, oh, you fell out of a window? Now, he's repeating what he heard because it's very hard to believe. He's surprised. So he says, you fell out of a window? And Rachel said, yeah, when I was in elementary school. Okay, now she's taking us back into the past. She's explaining to us in detail. I cracked it open. Okay, I cracked it open. It meaning what? Her head. Now, crack means to break, right? But the it here, once again, refers to her head. Now, crack itself, let's try the pronunciation. Crack, crack. But when it's used with it, cracked it, cracked it. The pronunciation changes a bit, okay? It's not cracked it, it's cracked it, cracked it. I cracked it open. I cracked my head open. So, in other words, she hurt her head. It wasn't a major injury, so it was a minor injury, but I was rushed to the ER, and a doctor saw me immediately. Now she says the process in ERs or at ERs can take forever. This means take a very, very long time. Take forever. We'll take a look at that pattern later on. And then she says they kind of put you on a ranking scale. And then she explains to us what she means by that. Now, she's talking about the ranking scale. She says if you have a serious injury, if you are seriously injured, they will see you first. Okay? The doctor will come to see you first. Okay? But if it's something small, you have to wait for hours and hours. And then she says, but when you were in the hospital, or in hospital, did you have to eat the hospital food? Okay? I don't know how many people around me enjoy eating hospital food. I hate hospital food. Do you like hospital food? I think they're one of the worst, right? So let's take a look. Well, Peter says hospital food in Korea is much better than in the UK. So he's saying it's not that bad, but he's talking about hospital food in Korea. It's not bad. And he says you cannot compare it. In the UK, I don't even know what it is because it's just all mixed together. Okay, so he's once again stressing that hospital food in Korea is not that bad, but hospital food in the UK is terrible. You can't even figure out what it is. Everything is just mixed together. It's this and that all mixed together. He says there is grilled fish, there is a soup, there are some side dishes. He's talking about hospital food in Korea. And then he says the food is great. The worst thing about it was the clothes. Okay. The worst thing about it, what does it refer to here? The it refers to being hospitalized, hospitalization, being hospitalized in Korea or elsewhere as well. The food's okay, but the worst part of it is or are the clothes. Now, Rachel says the hospital gowns, right? So she's asking a question, right? The hospital gowns. She's asking to make sure if she has understood correctly. Peter says, kind of feels like you're in prison or something, okay? Something of that sort. He says, I didn't like that. So next time, it's a tip for everyone. He's giving everyone a tip. Wear your own clothes, okay? Some comfortable sports clothes. Now, this is something that I would probably tell a lot of my friends. Now, when I am hospitalized or when I was hospitalized, what I did was I actually took my own pillow. I took my own blanket. I took my own t-shirt and sweats to change into because I did not like to wear hospital clothes or hospital gowns, and I didn't want to use their pillow. Call me picky, but yes, it will make your stay in the hospital a lot more comfortable. So that is a tip that I would give you and that, Peter would like to give you as well. Anyhow, let's move on. Rachel says, will they let you wear that? That meaning what? Comfortable clothes, your own clothes. He says, I think so because some other people were wearing them when they were walking around. He's saying he has seen people in their own clothes. And he says, I was very jealous. I guess because he did not have his own clothes, he had to wear a hospital gown. Now, Rachel says that's smart. That's good to know. And then that pretty much wraps up the conversation between Peter and Rachel. Now, I guess we learned something about Peter and Rachel once again. And I do want to take a moment to thank Peter for that wonderful tip. It's definitely a tip that I would love to give people as well. Next time. Hope it doesn't happen, but if you happen to stay in the hospital for a day or two, try to make it a bit more comfortable. Bring your own clothes, bring your own pillow or blanket or whatever from home, and you will not regret it. Okay, everyone, let's take a listen to it one more time.
Hey, Peter, I heard that you were hospitalized for a little bit. Are you okay now?
Yeah, just the other month I was in hospital, I think, for 4 days in total. It was a problem with my liver. But
Okay.
everything's fine now.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, but that 4 days was like the most boring, mind-numbing 4 days of my life.
Really? You weren't worried at all?
I was a little bit concerned, but I didn't feel too bad, just really
Okay.
fatigued. My
Okay.
muscles felt really heavy and stuff like that. But it wasn't like an emergency,
So
a
you weren't-
life-threatening thing.
Okay. You weren't rushed to the ER?
No.
That's
That would
good.
have been scary. Yeah, I
Right.
hate going to ER because you see all these people with injuries. You know, when I was a
Yeah.
kid as well, you'd see people bleeding like from their heads or their arms. You'd be like, I don't want to go to hospital. I'm going to end up like that.
Exactly.
But, have you ever been hospitalized ever?
Not overnight, but I've definitely been rushed to the ER a couple times. Sports injuries, as I mentioned before, and also I hurt my head. I fell out of a window.
You fell out of a window?
Yeah, when I was in elementary school, and I cracked it open.
Oh, no.
But it wasn't a major injury that I had to be hospitalized overnight, but I was rushed to the ER, and I was a doctor saw me immediately. Because you know how the process in ERs can take forever?
Sure.
They kind of put you on a ranking scale.
Yeah.
If you have a serious injury, they'll see you first. If it's something small, you have to wait for hours.
Yeah, any head-related injuries, I think they take priority, right?
Right. But when you're in the hospital, did you have to eat the hospital food?
But it was in Korea, and
Okay.
hospital food in Korea is much better than in the UK. Like, you
Oh.
cannot compare it. In the UK, I don't even know what it is, because it's just all mixed together.
Like
But,
mush?
Yeah, but in Korea, like, there's grilled fish, there's a soup,
Wow.
there's some side dishes. The food was great. The worst thing about it was the clothes. You know, you all
Right.
wear the same clothes.
The hospital gowns.
It kind of feels like you're in prison or something.
That's
Yeah.
true. Everybody looks the same.
I didn't like that. So
So-
next time,
yeah.
here's a tip for everyone. Wear your own clothes, like
Oh.
some comfortable sports clothes.
Will they let you wear them?
I think so, because
Oh,
some other
okay.
people were wearing them when they were walking around. I was very jealous.
That's smart. That's good to know.
Welcome back, everyone. Hope you had a better time enjoying the actual talk between the two. Now let's take a moment to take a look at some actual expressions, but first of all, some vocab. Now, what you can do is figure out the pronunciation on your own as well. Let's focus more on the synonyms. First of all, the first word was hospitalized. That's quite easy. Also, fatigued. I did want to point this out. It's not fatigued, it's F-U-H, fatigued. Fatigued, and some other words you can use in place are words such as tired, wearied, exhausted, and also played out. These all mean very, very tired, extremely tired. Remember, physically and mentally as well. What about life-threatening? If it threatens your life, it means that it is very dangerous. It's deadly and severe, so it's life-threatening. Okay, let's move on. Here is the first pattern to practice with. Now, it was a problem with my liver was what Peter said in today's actual talk. So, if you had to be hospitalized for a certain reason, if you had a problem with a certain part of your body or a certain organ, you can say it was a problem with so-and-so. Okay, the first sentence is, it was a problem with my back. In other words, I had a back problem, so I had to be hospitalized. Okay? One more. It was a problem with my hearing. Okay, in other words, you had a hearing problem, so you had to go to the hospital perhaps, okay? Just remember this pattern. It was a problem with so-and-so, and that is why you had to go to the hospital or be hospitalized, all right? Okay, let's take a look at this pattern here. Those, remember, Peter said 4 days, were the most boring, mind-numbing 4 days of my life. That is what Peter said. This pattern itself is quite long, so it could look like it's a lot, okay? Could sound and look confusing, but let's try it out with a few sentences. It's not that hard. Say, for example, those 2 days were the longest 2 days of my life. So break it up, okay? Imagine you are talking about what you already mentioned. So it's those 2 days. Those 2 days were the longest 2 days, repeated, of my life. Okay, let's try one more. Let's say those couple months or those couple of months were what? Were the most difficult months of my life. So this is a great pattern for you to remember, especially when you want to talk about something that happened in the past. It does not always have to be negative. It can be wonderful. For example, I can say, those 400 days. Okay, let's make it simple. Those 6 months were the most wonderful months of my life. Or you can repeat it. Those 6 months were the most wonderful 6 months of my life, okay? So this pattern could be used in a negative way and also in a positive way as well. We do have one more pattern for you. Remember, we did take a look at to take forever, which means to take a very, very long time. Here's a sample sentence. The wait took forever. For example, if you go to a bank or anywhere and you have to stand in line and wait for a long time, you could simply say, oh, wow, the wait took forever. The wait took forever, meaning I had to wait for a very, very long time. Okay, one more. The line is taking forever. This is what you can say when you are right there on the spot, talking about what is happening at the moment. So imagine the first one, you're talking about the past, where you had to wait for a long time. The second sentence is, you're right there. You're talking about how long you are waiting right now. You can say this line or this wait is taking forever, okay? So please do keep all these vocab words and patterns in mind, everyone. Practice some more on your own. All right, that's a wrap.
I've been lucky enough never to have to go to the hospital for anything serious, but I do have some experience with them because my dad had to go. He was very sick. If you're going to a hospital, I have a few tips for you. Hospitals can be unfamiliar places. They can be scary, especially for young kids. Everybody there is sick, the food is weird, the beds are different, the rooms are different than the one that you're used to. So what you want to do is bring some things to make it a little bit more like home. I like to bring, personally, clothes. Clothes make a big difference. There's something that you really notice. There's something that's familiar from your home. I also like to bring a pillow. Hospital beds can be kind of uncomfortable. Also, you're going to be bored. I need to bring books whenever I go anywhere. So bring a few long ones. You're going to spend a lot of time lying down and need something long to read. If you can get your family to bring you some food as well, that's good. Hospital food, not famous for being too good.
What a coincidence, another person with the same kind of idea. When it comes to staying in the hospital, bring your own stuff to make it a little more comfortable. Well, Joe told us that he didn't have to stay in the hospital, but his father did, right? He said, I've been lucky enough never to have to go to the hospital for anything serious. So, of course, he has gone to the hospital, but never for anything too serious. And he also said, but I do have some experience with them meaning hospitals, because my dad had to go. And he says he was very sick. Okay, one more. Bring some things to make it a little bit more like home. In other words, bring something to make it a little bit more comfortable, like home. I like to bring clothes. Well, he began by talking about what he personally likes to take to the hospital, especially things like a pillow as well. So I guess we have something in common. Okay, check out the rest on your own, everyone. And thanks to Joe, here's a listen one more time.
I've been lucky enough never to have to go to the hospital for anything serious, but I do have some experience with them because my dad had to go. He was very sick. If you're going to a hospital, I have a few tips for you. Hospitals can be unfamiliar places. They can be scary, especially for young kids. Everybody there is sick, the food is weird, the beds are different, the rooms are different than the one that you're used to. So what you want to do is bring some things to make it a little bit more like home. I like to bring, personally, clothes. Clothes make a big difference. There's something that you really notice. There's something that's familiar from your home. I also like to bring a pillow. Hospital beds can be kind of uncomfortable. Also, you're going to be bored. I need to bring books whenever I go anywhere. So bring a few long ones. You're going to spend a lot of time lying down. You'll need something long to read. If you can get your family to bring you some food as well, that's good. Hospital food, not famous for being too good.
Well, today we talked about hospitalization, in other words, being hospitalized, where we have to stay in the hospital for all different reasons. Yes, hopefully we won't have to go to the hospital and stay in the hospital for any reason, but it's always nice to be able to practice your English speaking skills with a lot of different topics because you never know what you will be talking about in the future. Now, we did talk about staying in the hospital, and next time I'll return with another hospital-related or injury sickness-related topic. We'll talk about surgeries, or also operations, as it's also called. So perhaps we can talk about getting surgeries, going under the knife, or also getting operations, going to the hospital for operations as well. Okay, please do join me for that. In the meantime, come to our homepage and check us out. Come to www.ebse.co.kr and post up some questions, comments. Even a simple hello would be wonderful. I have been getting lots of very positive and supportive messages from all of you out there. I do want to take a moment to thank you. And sometimes I do have a difficult time getting to your messages very, very soon. So please have some patience with me. I will get to your messages and yes, definitely leave you a response to them, okay? Well, in the meantime, take good care, everyone, and I'll catch you again next time. Bye for now.